As the Halo Crusade fleet enters the Ultima Segmentum, my Astartes chapters split off towards their affiliated Forge worlds to spread out more STC templates and rare minerals, as well as to claim Hive worlds as their recruiting worlds and gather their own auxilia. I bestow my sons with a great deal of advanced weapons and Invictus suits, as well as repulsor tanks and Guardian walkers for their tech marines. Thus, 60,000 blank Astartes make their way into the galaxy while my own force diminishes to only 10,000 Astartes I will keep as Lancefire domain protectors. I still have 2 million Thalax cyborgs and 100 strike cruisers, but my battleships and battle barges have all been gifted away to the new blank chapters, as well as the drop cruisers my sons will need to assault or defend worlds. But this is not a drain on my resources, or only a temporary one. For at Machine Forge, I have now 40 Forge Worlds expeditions, each bringing their own expertise in various fields, from cogitators and logi engines to weapons and armor, fabrication lines and exotic technologies like Nova cannons or gravity tech. Mighty Zorhulash, the Catan shard inhabiting the Pharos, is glad to see me, and somewhat surprised I have survived my quest to recover the breath of gods. Or that I remain sane, most likely. The Speranza AI is instead horrified of learning of my adventures, mostly those among the Votan in the galactic core. I won't bother you with all the insults that grated my ears. And you even stole the Ironhead Votan from Necromunda? That thing is not only insane, but also stronger than me. For I am shackled with abominable intelligence overrides, and the Votan core is not. The Speranza yelled from its shackled ironkin remote. I held out my palm, and the Blade AI poked its head out as a blue holographic woman. Humans are quite bothersome, aren't they, big brother? She asked in a melodic voice. The Speranza sputtered for a second, and locked its powerful noosphere gaze on the tiny blade. A Federation AI? Some kind of time jump experiment? Yes? Blade whispered gently. The Blade of Infinity. Why are you so weak? Speranza asked, a bit surprised. The hologram glanced at me, then looked down. The fall of the Eldar didn't allow the research team enough resources. Nor did the Council approve our mission, considering it wasteful. Only a pair of time jump ships were constructed, using whatever was available. Civilian tech mostly. I guess we can move your core mind into a demiurge fane. Though it would be a pity to destroy the senile mining servers. The Speranza mused in a slow manner, lightly calculating loss and rewards for such a trade. The Blade smiled and glanced at me. Right, it was my turn to explain. About that. My new powers will allow me to construct Federation-grade data cores. I already built about 20 of them for different polities, but I will take care of my domains even better. I'll have to ask the Votan if it wants a dozen new cores as well. I offered with a genial smile. The huge armored remote of the Speranza stepped next to me, then crushed me in a bear hug powered by hydraulic pistons. My Terminator plate withstood it, with protesting groans. At least there is that. The plan will move forward much faster this way, Speranza declared in a hopeful tone. Leaving a holographic projector on the desk, I waved the Blade to jump ships and talk with Speranza while I went to visit Zorhulash and check on the galaxy with the Pharos. Lady Valaine was already here, with a holoscreen lit up to project the galaxy map and all known forces. The Tyranids with their red and brown symbols were still expanding, and often clashing with the green orc sigils as well as Necron and Eldar symbols, beside the golden Aquila of the Imperium. As a visual aid, the galactic map was already helpful, but it didn't compare with the real thing. I sat on my adamantium chair and opened my mind to the wide senses of the Pharos device. Pef Lancefire, your presence has grown. You have opened the seal as well. Zorhulash spoke in my mind, as I gazed over my domain in the fringe. Colonization was already in progress in the orc worlds we have scoured before leaving, as the chainswords of our sentinels were busy with clearing up farmland and providing construction material for the waves of new immigrants. Our PDF was still fighting some beasts and feral orcs, though mostly by poking and then running back to the tarantula turret's safety. Lars guns and shovels of the PDF were not exactly sufficient to deal with 10 meters tall reptiles or small hordes of axe-wielding orcs, but the turrets were meant to deal with far worse enemies. I did have the Void Spinner tech from the nice Eldar Farseer back at Ixnilo, so cleaning up orc spores will become far easier soon. It may take a decade or two for my librarians to tour the entire Lancefire domain and exterminate the orc spores, but at least this problem was solvable, and quite soon. I checked on the town next, to find their star empire much reduced by the lack of Xeno's allies or human worlds, but also experimenting with plasma mortars similar to my new ones. Clever ones, the sneaky Tau. They always found the best way to destroy an enemy at range, and it even seemed to work somewhat against Necrons. Then again, plasma was a great counter against Necrodermis as well as pretty much anything else. The Ultramar domain was under attack by Chaos Plague ships spreading disease and corruption, and 40,000 Ultramarines and their successors were fighting back with bolter and sword. Didn't go that well either. I guess I should help, right? Couldn't do much about the plagues, but at least I could cripple the plague ships with Nova mines displaced inside their hulls. I reached 93 deep strikes when the effort began to overwhelm me. There were still a few ships left, so I could only send small melter bombs on their pox-filled bridges. And my mind began to sway and Visson to blur. Still, not bad for a day's work. Unless the plague ships entered the warp soon, I will find them and blow them up tomorrow. Mighty Zorhulash, we have much to talk. When I wake up, I muttered as I displaced myself right in my bed. The Inquisitor Lady Valaine Romaeus Lancefire watched the cauldron symbols vanish one by one from the galactic map, then raised her eyes to look the giant Xenos godling in his alien eyes. I'd guess those were Nurgle worshippers that my husband just killed? She asked out loud. Pef always struck at chaos first, making his targets rather predictable sometimes. Etheric emanations with Type 4 decay imprints. Temporarily delocalized from this dimension plane. Negasai weaponry or logopedic reversal is required to permanently destroy this kind of etheric enemies. You will need either pariah gene carriers or anathemic Type 5 powers to obliterate them, Inquisitor. Or perhaps Necron pylons and Blackstone forts, if available. The Catan answered in his alien way. Silent sisters, I get it. And maybe saints? Spelling their true names in reverse as well. As for Necron pylons, we only have one installed on the Eternal Lament. Doesn't do much that I could see. She mused in a thoughtful voice. It fit with her own knowledge about combating demons and their servants. The current timeline will end soon, Inquisitor. The galaxy has begun to split apart, with the fault lines spreading out from Terra. Luckily for us, here in the eastern fringe, the new eye will not burn too bright. If a powerful enough source is installed on the Pharos, I might be able to provide shade for the Lancefire domain, and several sectors around. The Catan added with a tinge of emotion, perhaps worry. The Inquisitor just nodded slightly, hiding her fear. Now the trillions of immigrants leaving Holy Terra began to make sense. The Emperor was very aware of this event, if he was evacuating people in such large numbers. As for a new eye centered on Terra, if it resembled the fall of the Eldar, then whatever god was being born will be fueled by enormous human sacrifice. Do you know the name of the god being born? She asked in a hopeless voice. You already know it. Everyone knows it. The weapon, the anathema, the Star Child. I predict he will call itself Judgment. The Imperium calls him God Emperor, with hope in their trillions of voices. They won't be so hopeful when his eye opens. The Catan whispered with a gloomy voice. Valaine fell to her knees, as her last drop of hope shattered. Stand up, Valaine Lancefire. Your old world's ends, but you are not that old person anymore. You are a Lancefire now. If there is any safe place in the galaxy, it is here. Even gods thread lichtly in this place, for Pef Lancefire lives here. The Catan star god encouraged her with a strange tone, almost admiring. Her eyes became hard and cold, and she rose straight and determined. We are Lancefires, and fear nothing. For we are what they fear. She proclaimed with newfound strength. Good. Now step closer and let us see about that nexus you wear. You can't be a proper Lancefire and be weaker than a single Titan Legion. Zorhulash offered as living stone steps flowed up from the floor. Verlaine climbed the steps and reached eye to eye with the imprisoned shard. The Catan was afraid of her husband, that much was clear, so she shouldn't be in danger. Then a tentacle made of living metal pierced her forehead, and the agony began. I woke up with a strange feeling invading my senses. At first I thought it was a Catan or some kind of mental parasite, but then I realized what really happened. My wife Verlaine had become a dimensional traveler, and the first thing she did was to invade my personal space. Literally. My dimensional tesseract labyrinths, filled with treasures, money, weapons and artifacts collected from 1,000 worlds, now had a visitor. She didn't have my power, but somehow her psychic power had been channeled through the Nexus Arrangement Cube, while the same device had been merged with her null staff to become an armor piece resembling a power armor's vambrace. Thus, of course Verlaine was now picking through the Grey Knight Aegis suits and damaged items for more psi-tech for her use. I just watched in half-horror as bits and pieces reformed, the metal and sigils healing under her hand be reforged into a half-silver and gold armor that included the Votan barrier shield and hundreds of Grey Knight accessories and purity seals. She did look amazing in her new armor, and she even grabbed a certain Drukhari blaster pistol I named the Chekhov gun, then loaded its other gun magazines with 3 Dark Star bolts. Then as a final fuck you, she picked up the Gatling silencer and made its barrel spin, ready to fire. "You are awake now, husband?" Verlaine spoke rather confidently. I traversed the labyrinth to meet her in person, and check what she had done to herself. I see the prisoner has been quite helpful. A bit heretic too, melding xenotech with imperial technology. Not that anyone will mind, in my lands. I observed cogently. Verlaine smiled with a sad face, as her Gatling gun spun in midair. This Gatling silencer, it is all crystal tech inside. A conduit for a psyker's power to channel the warp into anti-demon nega-psi bolts. The final result of Knebrak and Interx meld of technology called spiteforging. Technically, the Grey Knights are proven heretics now. She lacked the hateful vigor of a proper Ordo Xenos Inquisitor though, as if resigned and maybe disgusted. I just hugged my wife and waited for a minute. What will we find inside the Golden Throne or the Psi Titans? How many of humanity's inventions were simply repurposed alien devices? I would guess quite a few. But I found out why the Gatling gun disliked my touch now. Spite tech, huh? That left glove you wear, it is similar and yet far stronger than my own. If you were a psyker, just that glove would raise you into Alpha Plus ranks, not to mention your tesseracts and stranger gifts. She noted in the same sad voice, lacking hate and fire. I can actually reformat an entire star system to my will now. Is that the limit of an Alpha Plus psyker though? Are there higher ranks in the power scale? I said in a wondering voice. Her eyes flashed with warp energy for a second, refilling my reserves through my pariah drain. Control is the problem, not power. The warp is immense, infinite perhaps. One can draw as much as they want, until their mind and body fail. Beta Plus and Gamma Plus are the known stages after Alpha Plus, but theoretically they can go higher. Much higher. It should work the same for blanks then. Omega Minus is not the last stage. I mused with a new purpose in sight. In fact, I already suspected that, with my solitaire friend becoming a demigod by draining Vashta not long ago. A pair of blue eyes opened on her vambrace, as her etheric detector activated. Quite a multi-tool the Catan had crafted for her. Type 5, inverted. Ether drain, minimal. Danger level, mostly harmless. Verlaine read out loud what her Xeno device said. I shrugged and slapped her armored ass. That's me, Perf Lancefire. Mostly harmless. I quipped as my powers extended outwards, and began reforging the machine forge into a proper mega shipyard and mining base. Blocks of metal from the Votan treasury, then space Hulk fragments and collected asteroids got dumped into the system, as I began assembling a planetary ring and orbital elevators made of adamantium. If Mars had the iron ring, my machine forge needed one as well. And then a metal planet to exploit for unlimited metal. Then mountain-sized titans to act as guardians and enforcers for the Deus Ex Machina Titan Legion. Planetary core deep under the crust, for extra data storage and contemplation power. I just woke up, and was feeling tired already. Valayan sent a tendril of warp energy towards me, and the energy replenished. Still mentally tired, but at least my body was fine. I need some black tea. It's quite tiring constructing planetary scale structures. I muttered and returned to my room, tea flask already in hand. Canis glanced at me, and sighed in his wise way. He also missed Purity, but the girl was now on Terra with her sister and big brother. Janice came out mostly fine, so hopefully the Emperor could train the little one as well. For a second I imagined Purity roaming the halls of the Imperial Palace and kicking the ankle of some rude giant, like Primarch Angron. Then ripping his butcher nails out one by one. I think the new core is for me, right? Speranza sent to my implant, while already installing his fork mind into the brand new data core. The blade gave you the new STC templates, right? We'll need to make the anti-grav tanks for my Astartes next. The tracked vehicles will stay with the Auxilia and PDF troops. I asked in a tired voice. You should sleep again, Pef Lancefire. Let the nanites restore your mind, and focus on the big project. We'll deal with the small stuff for you. The AI answered with slight admonishment. Oh well. I could sleep, that was true. I woke up again, much later. Canis was growling in warning, as Fabricator Gemma insisted to visit me right away. Might be something to do with the planetary engineering. My bodyguard was fast asleep at her feet, because the sneaky woman had her sensor incense doped with soporific smoke, of course. What is it, Fabricator? I muttered half asleep and drew another tea flask from my inventory. My tech priests and acolytes are overwhelmed with fervent logic prayers and data epiphanies. The machine forge has awoken, and gained its own machine spirit. Calls itself Ex Machina. Gemma divulged in a half-horrified and half-awed voice. I know. I did that. I managed to answer in between tea sips. Lady Gemma dropped the incense burner and ran next to my bed. Don't joke about this, Lord Pef. Tell me I can trust the giant spirit. It is teaching everyone new STC templates as well as 1,000 disciplines of mechanical dogma. My logic barriers still hold, barely. She pleaded with desperate eyes. Deus Ex Machina, my lady. Speranza would not call itself a god, but practically it is one now. Anyway, I have 2 other machine spirits almost like that, ancient minds from the dark age of technology that I found during the last crusade. The blade and iron head. You'll love the blade, I'm sure. I disclosed with a sneaky grin. Lady Gemma climbed in my bed and began riding the lance, as her final walls crumbled. So much knowledge, an ocean of data, she gushed out in fervent ecstasy. I gave your fabricator Tier 3 access, Pef Lancefire. Her cogitators and mind implant are top grade, so she'll be able to absorb and understand a great deal of Federation tech. Barrier, singularity and temporal tech is instead restricted to those I deem worthy though. Blanks at a minimum, and a disposition towards the scientific method as well. The Speranza spoke in my mind, much stronger than before. Inwardly, I agreed. Wouldn't want to risk another dark mechanicum rising among the superstitious tech priests. Plasma and cogitated tech were dangerous enough, but collapsing stars or timelines was rather different. As for Psi-tech, we will need a different star system to develop fabrication methods, much like the Grey Knights had their Deimos Forge world. I can build an android body for myself now. Fold my weapons and equipment under my skin, and become a pretty lover for you, my lord, Gemma whispered as she rested on my chest. I didn't have to think much where the idea came from. The blade would want an android body for herself as well, and Gemma was likely the only one with the ability to construct a quality body like that. Plus digital weapons and tools were quite small as well, and only costed a few fruits for our Jokero. The planetary ring should work as a wedding ring too. I added with a teasing voice. A man and his wolf walk into a bar. Wait, wrong century. Or millennium, whatever. While the machine forge is gearing up for extra production, I took a small step through the Pharos and arrived at my other forge world. Retribution. The place where science is being rediscovered right now. Where psychers need to be fortified to heaven and back lest they explode. Really, too much enforced reality can make a psyker disconnect from the warp, and they just die. Even normal people may suffer the same fate, depending of their mental and soul resistance. Thus, only tech adepts and blanks can live on the planet now, and some sisters of battle that simply don't care and keep on holding the faith. Especially valuable when they are non-militant orders like Dialogus or Familius, or law-keepers and matchmaking types, so they can teach their own lessons. Other teachers are competent tech priests that were able to split off from doctrine and teach only the basic facts, although some of them also teach the Mechonicus doctrine as well. Teacher Aristotle has command over the single higher learning institution that humanity has in 40k right now, called the Temple of Knowledge. It helps that he is a clone skein of Primarch Vulcan, so most people got used to his giant size by now. Primarch Vulcan gets to step on a real planet and meet a few of his other clones, and boost our research by an order of magnitude. And soon after, the Blade and Speranza will get their planetary cores and increase our learning curve by another order of magnitude. My poor fabricator Dominus of the Forge Retribution had a heart attack and several brain seizures while reading the list of STCs and other discoveries I brought back. The faulty heart was replaced with another electromechanical pump, and a few brain lobes got replaced by new cogitator cores, then a bath in holy oil restored my brave tech priest to function. He was still happy as he gained 22.21% more memory space and contemplation rate from this event. Plus more machine equals better. I even got closer to the ideal of the Mechonicus cult, Lord Lancefire. The fabricator exclaimed happily as he began the holy download once more. I nodded and patted his red hood. Then also patted my wolf on his head, which sadly lacked a red hood. Grr. Canis warned me while glancing hatefully at the tech priest's smelling hood. Got it, big boy. No hood for you. I also have a damaged STC constructor and an ancient core inhabited by a machine spirit predating the dark age of technology, but those things are somewhat dangerous. I'll try to obtain their cooperation peacefully, before resorting to sustained percussion diplomacy. I added as the fabricator got lost in contemplation. That sounds / looks greater than great, holy / revered emissary of Omnissiah. But / wait perhaps give me plus time to assimilate the current knowledge? The fabricator muttered in half-intelligible words mixing Gothic with tech lingua. I shrugged and stepped off, reaching the good Primarch and his awed students. I mean, religious iconography considered and depicted the Primarchs as holy archangels of the God Emperor, with Vulcan being the incarnation of perpetual motion via immortality and superior tech knowledge originating directly from the Omnissiah. Or rather, the strange mix of cults on my strange forge world made it so? Most certainly, probably. I wish people would stop kneeling and spouting prayers in my presence. I am only a man. Vulcan spoke gruffly as the sisters murmured prayers side by side with tech priests and various acolytes of both faiths. That's exactly what the Emperor said. Good luck with that. I quipped in a light voice, and shook hands with Aristotle. He used one hand, I used both. Folks. Stand up and silent. Primarch Vulcan has a few words to say, I shouted via the giant Amphitether's vox casters. Vulcan grunted at me a bit annoyed, then spoke in the deadly silent hall. For 9,000 years while I was absent, humanity had to survive without guidance, and got clogged with ritual and superstition. And while these rituals had some benefits like maintaining an unified culture and a modicum of repairs for our tech base, humanity in general has declined. This is much worse in the Imperium proper, where corruption, abuse and slavery have become the norm. My brother, Primarch Guilliman must be tearing his hair out trying to restore the Imperium as its Lord Commander. I sent a recent pic of Rabute on the main screen, showing his half-bald head to give a better visual aid for the audience. Nobody laughed though, ruining my joke. What I will tell you next is the truth. The Imperial Truth, as the Emperor called it. He wanted humanity to rule the stars, guided by reason and science and not superstition. At his order, thousands of religions and cults were destroyed, including those which worshipped him as a god. But it was not to be. My brother Lorga Aurelian invented the imperial faith, and for that, his homeworld of Monarchia was burned to the ground by the Ultramarines. Lorga was also the first of my brothers to fall to chaos. Vulcan spoke in a sad rumbling voice. I stepped forward to repair the big hole left by the blunt Primarch. That was then, maybe 12,000 years ago. The Emperor was a man of science, spending most of his time in laboratories to create weapons for humanity. The Imperial lasgun we all know and love is his creation. The Primarchs, the Custodes and the Astartes were all created by the Emperor as genetic weapons, to protect humanity against all threats, foreign or domestic. However, after his ascension on the Golden Throne, the Emperor could not walk among the people like a man. He tried to help with advice and psychic powers at range, and those were interpreted as miracles. And then, thousands and thousands of years and prayers created the new truth, the Imperial faith. The Emperor became the God Emperor, safeguarding the soul of humanity from the warp. Vulcan frowned as he analyzed my own speech. The Sisters of Battle were not quite happy either. The tech priests stared at me with glowing blue eyes. So Canis walked forward and howled, filling the hall with a golden holy aura, forcing everyone down, even the blanks among the students. The Primarch grunted and withstood the aura somehow, while I just sighed. The golden aura excluded me, as if I wasn't even here. Canis met the Emperor in person, and was blessed by his hand. This is not by accident or coincidence. Wolves were the first animals to be tamed by humanity, and they have guarded their humans faithfully and loyally ever since. Since Canis was thus blessed, he has become an imperial living saint, able not only to fight demons, but also devour their souls and grow stronger from it. My daughter Janice lives now by the side of the Emperor, and she is also a living saint. Also the only ruler of Adepta Sororitas, I continued in a softer voice. Vulcan snorted and ruffled the fur on Canis like he was a normal dog, then also patted my head from high above. Lord Lancefire has spoken. As did his wolf. Anyways, if you want to learn in this temple of knowledge, you will follow my rules. Science first, superstition later. Or else, you have to fight me hand to hand. I would be excited and forgiving if I lose. Canis glanced at me, then up at the huge Primarch, even more impressive in his green armor. He was also a wise wolf, and ignored the challenge. I also ignored the Primarch, and teleported on the nearest moon to deploy the Ironhead Votan and begin negotiations. Thief! Give me back my squats, Ironhead yelled for his first words. I just kicked his metal shell in return. Percussion diplomacy might work on the Ironhead, maybe. I can kick you all day, Ironhead. Read a star chart first. We are far away from Necromunda. The Votan noticed after scanning the sky for a minute. I unlocked the PEF/M41 files, and sat down on his metal case. I also have the higher ground, Ironhead. Choose your next words carefully. I advised the giant data core while sitting on its head. It took me a few weeks to finalize a deal with the headstrong Votan. That Ironhead name wasn't for nothing. It was also true that Ironhead had been hiding from the Imperium for thousands of years on Necromunda, while its squat clone skeins worked in secret to gather minerals and resources, disguised as regular abhumans. Also, the Votan was quite right to fear what it would happen, should the cult Mechonicus discover it. Dissection and then taken apart circuit by circuit, while its data looms and complex quantum database were being cracked open and probably purged. Only after the Blade AI instantiated her new fork mind and could discuss things on their special matrix network, did the Ironhead Votan relented. You could have told me the Lancefire League already had a hold in the galactic core. The old machine grumbled as I was constructing 4 more data cores to increase its storage and computation speed. You wouldn't have believed my words anyways. I countered with a shrug. That's correct. I would have suspected another Imperial trick or false flag. The Votan muttered in agreement. Right. Anyways, we are in agreement for the next part. You and the clone Skanes will take over mining and smelting operations for the Lancefire domain, as a subsidiary to the Lancefire League in the eastern fringe called Ironhead Lancefire. This will include contacts with the Tau Empire and trading minerals towards them, in return for advanced technology and scientific theories, I concluded while jumping off the next huge metal head and sinking it far below the surface. You could also construct new data cores without stepping on my head. You don't even need physical contact. The Ironhead Votan protested as I moved on top of the next metal head. Close proximity ensures warp protection via my pariah genes. The risk is low, but should some data demons sneak inside your personality matrix? It would be bad. I answered as I sat down, and rubbed my armored ass on its dignified metal face. What science interests you the most, Carl Lancefire? The Votan asked while enduring the indignity of my Terminator ass scrapping his nose. For now, gravity and anti-gravity theories. Using STC-made grav plates is only a partial solution. And I want better grav chutes and grav repulsors for my Sentinels and Thallax suits, maybe even for the larger Knights or Titans. I explained while deftly assembling the adamantium internal scaffold and power coils inside the next data core. And what then? Your silly tech priests will still need STC templates to construct the devices, by hand and tentacle. I've seen enough of their kind. The Votan complained in a disgusted tone. That part is true. But we also have an University of Science down on Forge Retribution. We have independently rediscovered the radio already, and we're working on television and radar systems next, I declared in a proud voice. Radar? That's 433 steps behind the nearest gravity-collapsing device, and at least 700 steps away from the earliest anti-grav devices. The Votan exclaimed while sniffing and almost making me fall off its nose. I do have an idea for the next research steps, Ironhead. Electromagnets for the first radars, then superconductors and magnetic levitation. Then rediscover the Higgs bosons with a particle accelerator and thus the Higgs gravitic field. Not too sure afterwards, but that's why we're gathering the brightest minds to our temple of knowledge. I mused with a thoughtful voice. To think even basic appliances like the radio and TV had to be discovered again, while humanity traveled the stars in huge weaponized cathedrals. Without tech priests and engineers, not even simple combustion engines could be built or repaired, not to mention vehicles and trains or lasguns and whatnot. Things worked somewhat better in my domain, but even after 2 centuries of hard work and industrial development, I barely had woodworking and the printing press available to the public at large. The last decade had produced domestic textile mills and a clothing industry, and also canned food and basic medications like vitamins and pain-killers, but no antibiotics and vaccines without a magi biologist being involved. Overall, my lands were somewhere about the start of World War II as tech levels, while the Imperium was before World War I or worse. While early radars would be useless against Eldar or Necron fighters, there were still other enemies like orcs and Tyranids who could be easier engaged at range with radar-guided ballistics. Sadly, while the Mechanicus did have very advanced devices and weapons, including quantum logic engines and exotic particles and many more, they also had no idea how they worked or why. Basic science will take time to catch up, even in my enlightened domain, because there weren't any real teachers to teach science. A few study groups with Demiurge and Tau captives had begun producing some results, but the Demiurge clones were mostly STC-based anyways, while the Tau were locked in their caste knowledge, separating every science field into unmeshable portions. Several air caste Tau worked on basic aerodynamics. The earth caste captives tried to explain their metallurgy and construction methods, while the water caste had social sciences. On the other hand, the fire caste had warfare doctrines aplenty, also structured into strict paths like our own Codex Astartes and infantry primer manuals. The Blade and Speranza got the task of reading and compiling the alien knowledge into something usable by our colonists, and reduce our dependency on tech priests and rituals wherever it was deemed safe enough. Nobody wanted to make a mistake and allow a Nurgle plague to infest our food or medicine industry. The city-sized bonfires over in the Ultramar domain were warning enough, even after the plague ships got blown up. Things got so bad we had to stop trade ships from Ultramar and turn them back, lest they carry a dormant pathogen and infect billions in the Lancefire domain as well. Even so, orcs and space hulks still roamed the galaxy and carried disease everywhere, and they couldn't be stopped with a trade interdiction order. By the next year, my domain was also struck by plague and disease, and hundreds of planets were quarantined to slow the spread and allow my Thalax cyborgs and space marines enough time to burn down the infected people and cities. Which is when an Eldar cruiser emerged from a hidden gate, carrying Sister Stern and her mentor Harlequin the Solitaire Nemorak. I extended my dimensional sense towards the incoming cruiser, to find both main characters were now immune to dimensional shift, so instead I stepped through and arrived on their bridge. A dozen Eldar aspect warriors opened fire at me with shuriken catapults and electric bolt spells, so I just laughed. Guys, if you want to die and join Ned, you only need to ask. I am not one to mind a small genocide in my spare time. Leave us. The Solitaire ordered with a pulse of black Negasai energy, which worked wonders against regular Psyker Eldar. They ran out, leaving me to hug my recently deceased and revived wife. I heard you killed 33 great demons, my dear. Even better than my personal best record. I congratulated Sister Stern while pawing her plump ass. I don't mind, but there is worse news, husband mine. I saw inside of the Astronomicon as I roamed the Valley of Death. There is a small child, sleeping with one eye closed. The other eye saw me, and I felt judged. Ephrael Stern spoke in a grave tone. I threw a water ballon back at the stupid clown and sat down with my wife in my lap. The star child, yes. All navigators see him now. I answered with a small nod. It knew me, Pef. It looked inside my soul, and counted my dead sisters trapped inside. Stern spoke in a pleading voice. I sighed and patted her head. When the Emperor fought Horus, he couldn't strike the damned traitor, because he still loved his son, no matter how corrupted he had become. So, the Emperor cut off his compassion and mercy, and sealed them inside the Astronomicon. Yet, the warp is still the realm of emotions. I explained in a patient voice. Nemorak froze, his next paint ballon barely tied in his hand. That would be a giant joke, Pef Lancefire. To see the fall of humanity caused by mercy. It won't be a fall like you created with Slanch, my Eldar friend. If that was the case, the Emperor would have asked me to kill yet another warp god. I countered with a careless shrug. Ah, yes. The famous god hunter, in his human flesh. And yet unable to stop a simple chaos plague. The Solitaire teased me in a joking voice. Luckily, I did marry the demonifuge, Menmarak. You can deal with the plague, right? I asked my stern wife, who nodded sternly at me. And heal the infected as well. Lady Aisha taught me a few tricks. Ephrael added as she leaned in to kiss me. Some men do have all the luck, right? Over the next few years, I mostly traveled my lands, constructing more planetary data cores, orbital elevators and other infrastructure projects, while the next generation of clone skeins are being gestated in our genetic crucibles. Stronger, faster and far more resilient than any human had a right to be, matching the Katakans and often exceeding them. Our Janetta Anzion is in charge of that project, while Strategos and the AIs are taking care of providing our new army with Votan-class exosuits and weapons. My other two Forge worlds had also increased greatly with the addition of a STC constructor for each of them, as well as metal planets and blackstone moons to mine for their needs. Maybe copying the Firecast a bit, but specialized clones for warfare does make sense. The Lancefire Knights have also grown to a full planet hold on Natale, with their own STC constructor for night suits that I found on the Raven House's homeworld. Experienced pilots slowly receive the larger models armed with neutron lasers and torsion cannons, while the new pilots train on armed sentinels until they get their own armature knight. We can only make 100 big walkers per year, but the armigers are basically better sentinels, so we have reached 1,000 per year rapidly. As for sentinels, all 4 of my Forge worlds produce the walkers at a fast pace, and have reached 40,000 per year already, with new factoriums and production lines being opened every year. We could make many more, but at a lesser quality, which would only make them die fast and waste resources. Even so, a less upgraded model of the Sentinel is being prepared for the PDF regiments, a simple chain glaive and iron beamer model made from plasteel, with an early radar on top. Turns out, once you figure out the basic science, producing radar antennas is rather easy, much like the new radio sets which are now spreading to every city and harp block. Making Vox beads is still a Mechanicus secret, and only released for auxiliary officers and important officials, but lunchbox radios are here already. Despite having the printing press and knowledge of radio waves, printing transitor chips is not that easy. We'll figure it out, maybe alongside television. Work is still going on at the Temple of Knowledge, but we only have a few black and white analog TV devices which break down constantly. Anyways, the ground army was never the problem. Lose the orbitals and any planet is doomed. So my efforts are mostly focused on the Navy, as is my mental energy and breath. Battleships are important fleet assets and extremely durable, more so when plated in adamantium and blackstone. No more looting and finding old relics though. I can construct the base shell and armor in a single day, skipping hundreds of years in the fabrication process of a forge world. The other internal systems and weapons are far more delicate, but this is why I have 100 orbital dockyards at the machine forge, and a billion tech priests to lend a hand. In 3 or 4 years, I expect the first batch of 100 Victory-class battleship to leave the docks, and 40,000 new torpedo corvettes as well. It's a boring life sometimes, mostly sleeping. Sometimes sleeping with women, then falling asleep again. I feel time is passing by like in a dream, which is oddly appropriate in this world. Then a wake-up call arrives, as the Explorer Mechanicus fleet mapping the fringe gets blown up by a roaming planet. The command center at the machine forge is full of tech priests and some Astartes and Inquisitors, all eager for revenge. I searched all the data vaults and I found something, Lord Lancefire. I believe we are dealing with a dark Mechanicum planet called Ulan_Huda. They escaped the scouring after the Horus heresy, and were pressumed, crippled or lost in the warp. They were known to have a Titan legion of their own called Legio Phasma. Fabricator Gemma spoke while gesturing at the holoscreen with an alabaster-like hand, containing more weapons and firepower than an entire Invictus dreadnought. A blue and red planet with warp drive engines and thousands of defense lasers and other dangerous weapons appeared on screen, dotted with hive cities and fabrication forges. I nodded slowly. This kind of threat was far beyond what the Imperium could manage, much like that Necron world engine. Luckily, I was here. Capturing this world should provide us with great knowledge and maybe even an STC or 2. Moving a planet is quite a feat, so they didn't do that by accident. Right? You will need to disable its warp drives first, Pef Lancefire. Want me to paint this world with the Pharos beacon? The Catan Undersuiter asked in my mind. I thought for a minute. I could indeed draw a Tyrannid hive fleet towards this thing, and block their warp drives with the shadow in the warp. But then I would also need to deal with Tyrannids while fighting the crazy dark tech priests. Then again, I had a demigod murder clown following me now, called Nemorak. This guy's pariah powers were off the charts, outmatching our strongest Omega- Silent Sisters. I should try that option first. Prepare your Scutari and Sentinels to escort the Deus Ex Machina Legion for deployment. We'll meet up with the Knights at Natale and some Astartes chapters for deep strike missions, I commanded in a calm voice. Even the 5 Castigator Godwalkers. Gemma asked in mild surprise. We'll take only 3 of them and no Scout Titans. Tech-Exorcists and Tech Marines will be more valuable for this action than simple firepower. We want to capture as much as possible, after all. I decided with a wide grin. Technological acquisition approved, Lord Lancefire. The quest for knowledge never ends. The fabricated demeanor of the machine forge proclaimed while nodding towards me with a sweet smile. I guess I was getting fucked tonight. By a sex droid. On the other hand, an android body was much nicer to hold, even if she could twist me around a finger with that enhanced bionic body of hers. Apparently, such human-like bodies were used by the Mechanicus sometimes, for diplomacy or infiltration. Gemma only made hers much better. Moving on the Black Lament Fortress, I gathered my Astartes sons around the holographic floating planet in the middle of the holotable. Black Lamenters, I want you to deploy at the North Pole, and disable the defense lasers and the warp engines. Insertion by dimensional shift, concurrent with the steel rain from your drop cruiser. The airspace will be too lethal for a normal combat drop, but we can send extra power packs and sentry turrets via pods anyways. I commenced while moving their chapter icon over the pole. Understood, sire. Other units in our drop area? Their chapter master asked while smacking a fist over the Auramite Aquila on his breastplate. As usual, yes. A division of Thalax cyborgs, about 120,000 of them, plus tanks and knights as needed. Depending on enemy forces, extra Scutari, Sentinels or even Titans may join. How I would prefer not to mix Lancefire blood with the Mechanicus creatures, I said with a slight scowl. Separating the corpses was always a problem post-invasion. I would also prefer not to be stepped on by a Titan. Master Hughes muttered as I turned towards the other chapter masters. Star Lamenters, South Pole, same thing. Void Lamenters and Astral Mourners, you two get the STC strike on the main spire. The Mechanicus will have Titans in support, at least 100 Warlords and 1 Castigator. Don't fuck it up. I added while moving their icons on the holomap. If there is an STC, sire. There might not be. Master Asta from the Astral Mourners spoke with a deep frown. Worst case, I will insert an old STC cube for you to find. But I meant, don't blow up the real one, if there is one. Or you all get to watch black and white TV for the next century. I growled in warning. Oh, the humanity. Not the old TV. My son uttered in fake panic. Void pirates and star pirates, you get to board any ships or dockyards. The space pirates may also join in, depending on how many targets we find. Try not to get lost in the warp, right? I offered with a kinder voice. Roger that, sire. We'll rush to disable any ship engines before they warp away. We'll need extra rapiers and guardians though. The top void pirate answered, nodding at me with a determined face. I did ask my boys who wanted to be a pirate. Being young and stupid, some of them said yes. Thus, 3,000 of them got the brave duty of boarding enemy ships and risked their lives that way. Lamenters and Red Lamenters, you will go after the leadership. Decapitation strikes, preferably literally. Since demon engines are guaranteed, you will have Silent Sister support, as well as the Leviathan dreadnoughts. Law, you take this bolt and use it on the worst enemy. Try to hit any flesh bit, for a guaranteed kill, I said while handing over a Dark Star bolt to the acting chapter master of the Lamenters. I was nominally still the actual chapter master, but I also didn't have the time to manage a single chapter. Law held the Votan-made death bolt for a second, then loaded it first in another magazine. Dark fabricators would have refractor shields and such. I'll use it after we draw first blood. It made sense, so I agreed. It would be a pity if the rare bolt simply got deflected by a shield. Grim Mourners and Silent Grievers, you are newer so you get to follow in the second wave, or else get displaced in enfilade positions if the opportunity arrives. And do try to stay over 90% hit rates this time. I ordered at the last chapters joining the battle. We have trained every day, sire. But simulated shooting range is not the same as real battle. I cannot guarantee more than 80% hit ratios. Even less if the Dark Mechanicum uses target jamming. Jason Grim Lancefire said with a grim voice. His brother from the Silent Grievers only nodded in silence. They took the silent part a bit too far, but they were also striving for perfect silence on the battlefield, using many of the Raven Guard tech and tactics. As the Lancefire fleet slowed down from hyperspeed, the Eternal Lament Fortress moved in front, with its Necron pylon glowing green as it became active. Nemorak blew me a kiss as he vanished from the bridge, and I tried to show him a finger only to find my hands glued to the command throne's armrests. Somehow, the Solitaire managed the trick in full view of 40 Astartes guards, 300 Thalax cyborgs, a van-sized Fenrisian wolf and the onboard machine spirit with its hundreds of scanners and cameras. Fine, I got the point, damn clown. Not moving from my seat to join the melee. I did use my breath to dissolve and displace the strange superglue, which managed to bond blackstone and adamantium to a plasteel armrest. Then I smacked the big red button and fired the black immaterium beam from long range, killing millions of cultists and lesser demons in a single second. The Eternal Lament followed with their purple beam, while the space around the Ulan Huda Dark Forge became locked by a crazy solitaire with reality-bending powers. Begin landing operations. Notify me of any warp portal. I ordered on the sounding board, directly to all captains in the fleet. Tiny holograms of the blade and Speranza lit up at my sides. Heavy noosphere jamming, Lord Captain. We are basically blind until we get much closer. Well, that was expected when attacking any forge world, not to mention a dark forge. I used my tesseract to pinpoint any dimensional shields, finding 4 of them covering 4 chaos temples on the planet. Chaos undivided? These guys were far behind the times. I focused my immaterium beam on the Dick with Claws temple and it burst into gore and screaming souls in less than a minute. Suck it, Slanch. The Khorne temple with the huge axe crumbled as Librarian Valerian crushed it with the purple beam of the Eternal Lament, and then we both focused our beams to tear apart the Green Ball temple which was lightly Nurgle's. Jamming reduced by half. Keep going. The blade encouraged me in my mind, as our Blackstone fortresses focused the last Blue Feather temple. However, even a minute later, the dimensional shield over the Zeonch temple still held, while my temples began to pound in pain. Damn it. Let me go next. The light of the Emperor will shatter this foul corruption. Sister Stern demanded in a stern voice, then flew out and straight towards the damned forge world on wings of faith. Like a white and gold comet, the demonifuge struck the warp god's temple with a fist, and then another. The dimensional shield cracked, and then she added a kick that shattered the entire warp bubble to reveal a host of Chaos Marines and demon engines. Lady Valaine sighed and displaced herself onto the planet as well, with her bodyguards in tow. Tall spires got sliced off and fell as lightning bolts the size of titans struck the Chaos Temple, while Alaric and Semni blurred into melee with Catan swords in their hands. All over the planet, drop pods fell in the Steel Rain strategy, while Thalax cyborgs and Astartes appeared by dimensional shift to blow up defense batteries and bunkers. Huge doors opened at the base of a large mountain range to release the Chaos Titans of the Legion Phasma, including shimmering Mirage Titans and other ancient models. 2 of our Castigator B Titans dropped from the sky to stomp on the small Chaos Titans, and scattering them like panicked pigeons. The 3rd Castigator landed at the North Pole to punch out the warp drive, while its secondary batteries leveled any turrets and deformed Skitarii. In orbit, the Astartes pirates began boarding the Chaos fleet, while I made sure the engine rooms were empty. 2 Forge Riser cruisers were still docked in bad shape at the orbital ring, its crew dead and desecrated all over the walls. Oh well. This was not a rescue mission anyways, but recovering 2 cruisers would be nice. I just kept watch over the battle from my command throne, wincing slightly whenever another of my sons died in glorious battle. Most of them died so quickly I couldn't even react, either crushed by a gravity beam or splashed by a plasma ball spat by a demon engine. Their Invictus armor suits were strong, but not invincible, even if their blank genes protected them from warp spells and other chaos tricks. The wounded Primaris Marines were much easier to recover and send to our apothecaries, while the Thalax cyborgs would only need a few replacement organs and limbs to get back in action. As our tanks and sentinels appeared on the battlefield, corrupted servitors and cultists became mere cannon fodder, while I diverted the remaining Astartes to board the rest of the Chaos ships, just as soon as the South Pole warp drive got blown up. The Irax automata of the traitors still posed a great danger due to their power claws, but the trick was simply to blow them away with ranged fire. Nemorak jumped out from nowhere to stab the leading Chaos sorcerer and grab a large soul stone, then he vanished again. Then Canis howled, lighting up the entire bridge with his golden aura as a certain thousand-sun bastard broke through the wards and emerged in front of my command throne. My Tempor Mortis device lit up with 3 blue lights, which probably meant something about the past. Ahriman, a hard man to find, I said in an easy voice as my shoulder-mounted Stormbolter cycled and loaded the Dark Star bolts. "She's not here, the little girl?" the crazy librarian asked in surprise, his helmet scanning the crew bridge and the Thalax blanks without concern. The first bolt stuck his knee, shattering the ceramite plate and blowing up his right foot. Canis rose to attack as well, but I urged the wolf to wait. The sorcerer leaned on his staff, still scanning my fleet with confused eyes. "Purity is with the Emperor now. Strange that you would fail your prediction this bad, sorcerer. Still trying to undo the rubric spell?" I asked in mild amusement, while waiting for the damned psyker to die. "A Dark Star bolt should kill anything, right?" Terror is too dangerous to reach right now. The sleeping child is waking. Wolf time is coming. Ahriman spoke in a gibberish voice, and crumbled into old armor bits and dust instead of flesh. Canis ran and brought me the still-living foot, and proof I failed to kill the damned sorcerer once more. Got his right leg though, so it was fine. The thing about Purity wasn't so fine though. Janice could fight off Ahriman probably, but Purity was still too young.